Coucou, comment ça va? So today we are going to talk about relationships. Hello everyone, welcome back. Today is yet another video in my kind of little series where I'm just talking about some of the things that are important to know if you're planning to live in France, particularly Paris. In my last video, I talked about how money really isn't a flex. It's not gonna really buy you anything, much like it does in the US. And I said that instead of money, it is relationships that really are going to help you accomplish the things that you need to accomplish in France. Now, I did not realize that this was how you get things done in France. It was just more so when I moved here and I was in my neighborhood and I literally had no one else to talk to other than like the people at the market and the florist and etc. That is how I soon realized that it was just like relationships and having people like you that really kind of helps advance your life here in France. And so I was just going around being my normal self, bubbly and happy and whatever, and I was surprised at one point because literally someone told me, a French person said, "Wow, Adriel, you have really good relationships with every single, commerçant and every single like shop, all the shopkeepers, etc. on your block." And I was just like, "Oh, yeah." Like to me, I was just like, why shouldn't I? And she's like, "No, that is a really big thing that's really helpful to your life in France." And so let's start there. That is kind of my rule, is that if you're planning to move to France, specifically to Paris, when you move into your neighborhood, you want to get to know the people who own the shops in your neighborhood. Now, I'm not saying this is going to happen overnight. In fact, it won't happen overnight. They need to see you a lot. You need to find a cafe that you like and you go into that cafe every single day, or at least a couple times a week. At the boulangerie, you go into there, every couple of days. You go into, the cobbler that you like, you go in there, maybe once a week or maybe every couple of weeks, but when you're walking by and the shop is open, you just wave in and say hi. They need to see your face, because the more they see your face, they're going to come to realize, hey, you live here. You live in this neighborhood. Are you new here? And then questions will naturally start to evolve. I'm not saying that you're going to necessarily move from the vous to the tu, right? So you're not necessarily going to move from the formal to the informal. That isn't the goal. The goal is really just to build what I more like to call a rapport with as many people in your neighborhood and around you as possible. And I think that there are a couple things that you want to keep in mind when deciding whether or not to build a rapport with a particular business or at a particular establishment. So first and foremost is I really aim to build a rapport with people who do not speak fast French in front of me with their coworkers. So when you first arrive and, people are standing there and you say something, let's say, I would like a baguette, and then they proceed to speak with their coworker in really fast French, that that they're talking about you, right? And I've always found that is something where I think it's disrespectful, because I wouldn't do it to somebody else. And so as a result, I just find that I cannot operate and frequent this business if somebody is doing that to me. The second thing I always like to keep in mind is that I want to work with the people and build relationships and a rapport with the people who give me the dime. So let me give you an example of this. If you go to the market and let's say you owe €5.19 and all you have is €5.20, there are one of two types of people you're going to encounter. There's either going to be the type of person who says, here's the dime, here's 10 cents back, because they don't have a penny. Or there's the person who says, I don't have a penny, and then they just shrug and send you on your way. That person, the person who is going to step up and say, sorry, I don't have a penny, good luck. To me, I don't want to be bothered with that person, because basically what you're doing is you're saying that you having the penny is more important than giving me back 10 cents or 5 cents so that I come back here again and again and again every single week. Whereas the person who gives you back the 10 cents, you're like, okay, you're not so focused on the penny that you're missing the forest for the trees, as they say. I want to note, I am someone who doesn't like to do a lot of small talk. I actually don't like to talk a lot in general, so it's crazy that I now have a YouTube channel. But as someone who doesn't like to talk a lot and particularly doesn't like small talk, I have found ways to connect with people on a genuine basis, and I found that curiosity, when they extend and they show that curiosity to you, you're more likely to reciprocate it, and then you can have like a bit more of a meaningful discussion. So don't think about it, don't force it. It's something that will evolve naturally. Next up, let's talk about the stranger relationships that are kind of outside of your neighborhood. So for example, if you go to the bank or you have a problem and you need someone to help you, and you are encountering someone who just is being a little bit resistant. So one of the first things to note in France, and I think I've mentioned it plenty of times in other videos, is that there are two qualities you need to know about France. One is that there are rules, and people love to tell you what the rules are and instruct you on how you are not following the rules. And they're sitting there and they're like this all the time, and you just kind of have to sit and listen. I can tell you the way you handle it, don't argue it, don't say anything, just sit and listen to it, say okay, and then at the end of it, they will help you, okay? They generally will help you. They're gonna fuss at you, they're gonna educate you, they're gonna tell you all the ways in which you're doing it wrong because you're a foreigner and you don't know, but then they're gonna help you, and so you just kind of like let that go, and you just take it and accomplish what you need to accomplish. Now, the second thing to know though about living in France and in Paris is that no is the beginning of every single negotiation. So when you go someplace for help and you need assistance, almost always the first response you're gonna get is no. And you should not accept that no as a no. Personally, I would say do not argue, do not yell, do not get aggressive. People generally are not gonna help you in that situation. I personally like to try to just calmly just push a little bit, like, are you sure it's not possible? Or is there any way you can do it? Is there any exception? And I just stay calm, I stay respectful, and I just like offer a bunch of solutions until finally somewhere we get from the no to the maybe, and then like, here's my firm lecture, and then finally I get to the yes. So that's kind of how I like to do it. But there are also times when you're at your limit, right? Like you've been run around in circles. In that situation, when you snap, don't yell, it is better to cry. That freaks everybody out when you start crying because they expect yelling, because that's what another French person would do. I have found when I cry, like when they have all pushed me so far that I'm in tears, people want to help you, mainly because you're the woman, grown adult, standing there like bawling like a child because you can't figure out whatever is happening. It's all happening in fast French. Perfect story for you. And I think I may have mentioned this before, but if you're watching this the first time, you may not have heard of it. So at one point, my last apartment, I was being kicked out, and I found my current apartment 3 days before I had to be out of my last apartment. And so I needed to go to the bank, I needed to get these checks, like these cashier checks for my landlord. So I went to the bank, it was the only branch that was open on a Monday. I went there and I said, I'm talking to them, and I'm like, oh, I need, these 3 checks and these 3 amounts. And the guy's like, okay, here's a piece of paper, you have to fill out this paper, and, and also I need your passport. And I was like, oh, I didn't bring my passport, but when I come back tomorrow, I can bring my passport with me. I have my driver's license, and of course, you guys have my account, so you have my passport on file. And he goes, oh, well, if you don't have your passport, then I can't do anything to help you today, and you'll have to come back tomorrow. When he said that, all I could think is, I'm about to be homeless in this foreign country, and I snapped and I started crying. I full on ugly cried, snot coming out of my nose, like bawling. And I was telling him I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm about to be homeless, my landlord's kicking me out, she's awful, she's cheated me, all of this stuff. So I'm telling him every single thing that's happening, and I'm like bawling, and he goes, oh no, madame, sit down, let me get you a piece of chocolate. And he runs into this office and he's like, here, have some chocolate? And he runs and he gives me a piece of tissues, and then he says to me something that I have never forgotten. He said, "Oh, ma'am, if I had known you were having such a hard time in France, I would not have told you no. Of course, you can come back tomorrow when you pick up the checks with your passport. I can look at your driver's license now and compare it to make sure it's the same photo as what's on your passport. That's okay." And then he goes, "In fact, tell me what the information, how many checks you need and what amounts they need to be, and I will fill out the papers for you." You all, that was a completely different man. The moment I started crying, I was like, "Sir?" This is why I say crying is more effective than shouting. Now, another thing to note is that there are also people who are just like not going to want to deal with you because you are a foreigner, because, you know, your accent in French isn't perfect, whatever else. That's fine. Don't get upset about it. Like, just move on. Just go find somebody else. Like, there are days when you'll encounter people and they clearly like don't want to do any work and they don't want to be helpful. Don't get upset. Just move on to another person. Find someone else. And I also would like to note that every single thing that I just said, none of it applies at the prefecture. The people at the prefecture, I think that if the like very senior people in the French government knew exactly how people were treated at the prefecture, it would probably spark massive investigations, because there is a certain level of cruelty that you will experience at the prefecture. There's no negotiating with them. There's like nothing, just like take your beating. This is why I actually think never go to the prefecture alone. Like, go with somebody who is either French or is experienced with dealing with the prefecture. One of the two, because those and let that person engage in the interaction for you, because the prefecture is just, it's another world, it's another planet. So yeah, the prefecture is just, it's a place where there is no kindness, and that's really the only way I can describe it. It's truly the cruelest place I have ever experienced on earth. It's the closest I think I've ever come to hell on actual earth. So yeah. Last and certainly not least, when it comes to relationships, I'm just gonna touch upon this briefly because I feel like it's also its own standalone video. French friendships. I get this question all the time, how it is to make French friends in France, etc. Personally, what I have found is best and easiest to make friends with French people who have lived internationally. Yes, you can kind of like wear down a neighbor into friendship, you know? I'm not gonna say that isn't possible. However, I have found the fastest French friendships that I have formed are with French people who have lived outside of France for substantial large periods of time, because otherwise in French culture it's very normal that people form their friendships, you know, in elementary school and high school, and then that is their friend group for life. You know, they add on some friends from college at university, of course, and then when they have kids they might they make like other parent friends, but for the most part like their core group of friendships are very much formed in high school. And I know French people who have literally been told, you know, "Oh, you seem really nice, but like, you know, we can't add you to our friend group because there are already enough people." Also, don't knock, you know, developing international friendships, like friendships with people from elsewhere. And also don't knock being a part of an American expat community. It can be really, really helpful sometimes to have people who can really relate to your experience. I know there are plenty of Americans who say, "I don't want to have any American friends, you know, now that I'm in Paris, I want all of my friends to be non-Americans." Don't do that to yourself. Just don't. Just don't. The Americans can help you on stuff that, you know, no one else can. With that said, I hope you have enjoyed this video. Please feel free to let me know if you have any questions in the comments or you have any thoughts, and I'll talk to you again soon. Bye!